Hi, Y Scholars. Welcome to week 24, Academic Self-Care, Coping with Your Stress. To begin today, we'll go over our vision and mission. So our vision is to elevate people's growth mindsets so we all achieve higher ambitions. And our mission, as always, is to guide first-gen high school students to the pursuit and obtain a college education. Moving forward, just a quick refresher on why we attend study group and the purpose for, again, participating in it. They are to, 1, increase your connections with other Y scholars, 2, improve your student success skills, so really trying to improve your own academic success, and 3, guide you to practice your growth mindset. So again, moving from that fixed mindset and really trying to realize that control you have in your own development and working to really enhance it. So to begin today, we're going to do more of a mindful practices. So our first assignment is to conduct a self-reflection. So again, this is something I'd like you all to take 5 minutes to do, to really reflect and understand what you feel and how you feel or view yourself. So the prompt that you'll be writing on a separate piece of paper, again, handwritten, will be, are you as confident as you would like? And because we always have space to grow and improve, what are those improvements you can make to really increase your self-confidence? So again, this is a little different than usual. What we're doing is practicing some mindfulness on how we, again, view ourselves and our capabilities. So again, really taking the time to assess our confidence and our confidence level. And those room for improvements is important. So go ahead and take 5 minutes to reflect. And once you're done, go ahead and continue on with this video. So moving forth, for those of you watching via Zoom, just a quick refresher and recap of those major assignment deadlines that are due. So again, our summer activity playbook should be completed as of last week. Go ahead and talk to Audi or Diego if you need some assistance with that. And moving forth, we also need to be aware of those upcoming deadlines. So the PIQ SE builders. So again, these are the main assignments due as we end this program this semester. So being sure to complete those is important. And again, if you need assistance, go ahead and sign up for advisory every week. So again, practice dedicating that time for college planning. Really show that you can take initiative and commit time to this assignment here. So again, sign up for advisory every week on advisory.yscholars.org. And again, it's important because you're learning to be consistent with those deadlines. You're showing yourself and us how serious you are about college and your aspired pathway. And again, you're going beyond those requirements. So when you go beyond the requirements, there's more doors that are open to you. You have more opportunities because again, you stand out. So make sure you're really taking advantage of advisory.yscholars.org and coming and asking your questions. Moving forward, we're going to do a quick recap on what we discussed last week. So moving forward, again, we see that stress is a spectrum. So there's a wide range on this different types of stress that we can feel, and it varies from healthy tension all the way to breakdown. So again, that low level of stress is in somewhat, again, able to boost our performance and physical and mental well-being. But again, when we tip over our balance, when we push our limits, and again, we are failing to really acknowledge or address that stress level, that's when we lead to breakdown. And again, our performance is affected both physically and mentally. So again, as you can see, stress is a spectrum and it's easy to fall between the two. So on the good side or the bad side of stress, which is why it's important that, again, we're very self-aware. Just to really reiterate what we discussed, again, there's different levels of stress and they all either, again, impede on our performance or can give us some motivation to continue on. So that first level of stress is normal stress. So that's when we have our off days and we're still able and manageable and have our work manageable for us. Moving forward, that's when we see chronic stress. So that's the next level up. So that's when we're constantly tired, irritable, and some anxiety. So again, we see that rise in stress. So we're going more towards the right side of the spectrum. And lastly, that extreme detrimental level of stress is burnout. So that's when we experience social detachment, when we have those physical pains, and we have complete emotional exhaustion. So again, when we have those high levels of stress, it has the ability to affect every aspect of our life, our mental, emotional, and physical well-being, which is why it's important that we are constantly reflecting on ourselves and checking in on how we're doing. So again, burnout doesn't happen overnight. Instead, it's that accumulation period of stress where you're not reflecting on the causes of stress, and therefore you're not making those changes to really work to undermine that stress or its impacts. So again, this is self-awareness. Being self-aware will help prevent that burnout state. So again, learning to maintain a healthy level of stress is accomplished by knowing what is in your control. So again, while there's very much that external factors can impede on our stress, it's up to us to use what we have in our control to really improve our environment. So again, facing the facts. When we actually take the time to create this space to reflect, that's when we'll understand the power we have to make those necessary changes to enhance our performance. So again, just to reiterate again, self-care is a scheduled or planned action that helps you become a happier, healthier person. The results, again, should have that staying power where the results are really working to optimize your future. So these activities make us feel good in the big picture. So self-care is not that destructive behavior, the behavior that's not going to help you advance or progress towards your goals. And it's not ignoring your issues, because again, when we ignore our issues, that's when we see that it could become something more detrimental, like burnout. So self-care is when you're checking in with yourself and you're establishing those good habits. So a type of self-care is academic self-care. So this is a scheduled or planned action that helps you become a happier, healthier student. So again, these also have a lasting impression, and it helps us feel good in the bigger picture. So some examples of this in the real life setting would be being organized, asking for help, or setting those goals. So again, academic well-being is the establishment of good habits that create balance and allow you to perform at your best. So you know that you're well situated with your academic well-being when you are completing those assignments to the best of your potential and receiving the credit for that. So really, you're well-rounded in your studies, and in turn, your grades are more well off and you have that better comprehension level. So this is a recap of what we discussed. And this week, as I mentioned before, is academic well-being, coping with your stress. So the first step is to identify that stress level. And the next way is learning to cope with it. So today's session will be successful if we identify the effects of stress and practice a variety of coping strategies to reduce the effects of stress. The second activity which we'll be working on today is to draw the effects of stress. So go ahead and draw again on this separate piece of paper what you think those effects of stress are or look like in your own daily life or that you've witnessed. So again, we see that, or we'll acknowledge that each of our pictures or understanding of stress is going to vary, because again, we all have our own different triggers or responses to certain situations, which again cause different levels of stress or different effects of stress. So again, how does stress look like to you? What are those effects, and how do you usually identify them? More often than not, it's that when we associate these effects of stress, they're more negative in that they really impede on our well-being. And we could see this again with the following slide. So those effects of stress that are short-term include headaches, chest pain, fatigue, muscle tension, upset stomach, lack of motivation or focus, irritability or anger, sleep disruptions, restlessness, sadness, or depression, over or under eating, a higher rate of risky behavior. So again, you do not need to really feel all of these to say that you're stressed, but these are some of the factors or common effects of stress. So something I'd like to point out is that these are all very present moment effects. So again, you feel them at an instant, and usually they tend to go away after a while. So again, this is something that's pretty easy to identify as an effect of stress because it occurs usually around the time that you are feeling stressed. Moving forward, these are some of the long-term effects of stress. So they include these chronic illnesses like heart disease, diabetes, weakened immune system, anxiety, depression, and high blood pressure. So the sharping difference between this and these short-term effects are that these generally are hard to determine. Usually they're invisible in that you are not yourself able to dictate whether or not at this present moment you have diabetes or you have high blood pressure. So again, this is why it's important that we work to constantly be self-aware, because the way in which stress can manifest itself on the body, again, can go undetected. So how do we address stress? We address stress using coping strategies. So coping strategies are thoughts or actions someone uses to deal with a difficult situation. So certain research has shows that typically teens with the highest amount of stress usually address their stress, again, 44% of them, by using apps or online resources. The second most common response from teens is that 34% don't do anything to really address their stress. So again, we have that power to really work to address, acknowledge, and try to defeat that level of stress we feel. But again, it's going to take our own initiative to do so. So what I'd like for you to do is to go ahead and write down 3 possible negative ways you may use to cope with your stress. So some possible examples include substance abuse, risky sexual behavior, avoiding others, skipping school activities, anger, overeating, or not eating enough, self-harm. So again, these are these negative effects of stress, and these are common examples. What examples do you relate to or often see yourself or the people around you undergoing as a result of stress? Negative ways in dealing with stress. On the other hand, I want you to also write 3 examples of ways you can cope in a more positive manner. So obviously, there are positive ways to cope with stress, but sometimes we let our busyness mislead us into thinking we don't have the time to really adopt a positive habit. So again, go ahead and try to list out some positive coping strategies. Some include, but are not limited to, yoga, mindful sketching, watching TV for a limited period of time, taking a nap, playing sports, going for a walk, spending time with your family, or spending time outdoors. So again, we should see that all of these activities are a way of practicing some mindfulness or awareness. So again, it lets us step back from whatever may be stressing us and really situate us into the real world. So again, one I'd also like to highlight is number 7, spending time with your family. So again, you can use others as your resource as a coping strategy. So again, being social and really trying to surround yourself with others is also a way to reduce some stress. Another I'd like to highlight is 3. So watching TV for a limited period of time. So it's important that it's limited because again, if you begin to binge watch, you might add to your stress and that now you've fallen behind. So when we're using these coping strategies, we could see that it's easy for a positive coping strategy to soon become a negative one if we don't know how to limit ourselves or really when it's appropriate to and when to use. So again, it's also important that we are conscious and self-aware of the stress we feel, and we know the appropriate response to it. So we know the appropriate coping strategies to use. One that I'd like you all to practice are breathing exercises. So breathing exercises are a helpful way to relax, to reduce tension and relieve stress, because when you breathe deeply, it sends a message to your brain to calm down and relax, which the brain then sends to the rest of the body. So again, knowing that we have the control over this somewhat simple task that we often overlook, in that we don't usually think to breathe. We're usually just breathing. So knowing that we have this control over this kind of task that we might sometimes seem as trivial is important, because again, it shows us that in the end of the day, we're in control of ourselves, of our body, of the life we're living. So again, breathing exercises really help to situate yourself, to ground yourself and relax, to relieve that stress and let it diffuse throughout the body. So a common breathing practice is the 4-7-8 breathing technique, which I'd like you all to try on your own. So breathe more, stress less, and keep the pressure down. So another positive coping strategy, as I mentioned before, is being social. So kindness practices. One of the most effective ways to overcome anxiety is to try to shift the focus of attention away from ourselves and towards others. So again, we reposition our values and focus when we see that we are part of a greater world and community, and we're much more than those stressors that seem to consume our life at that present moment. So again, kindness exercises are helpful for you to bring your mindset from being stuck on you to thinking about others. A final task I'd like you all to complete is to write down one thing you did today to help others. Try to reflect. What's something that you try to kind of alleviate for others to reduce their own stress? So helping others is the easy way to gain connection and build positive coping strategies. Make it a daily practice to do at least one kind gesture for others, small or big. So similar to kindness, you could also practice gratitude. You can easily tell people why you're grateful or thankful for them or their actions. And again, these social coping mechanisms also, again, help us reposition ourselves and see that we're more than those stressors that seem to consume our life, that take over our mind. So again, remember to really try to be self-aware, to address that level of stress and address it in a way that's positive. Develop those coping strategies that are going to enhance your life and the community around you. Thank you.